Hey, and welcome to the Goat Show. What's got our attention today? I'm Josh.
And I'm Joe, and what's got our attention today is video game pricing models. This was an episode was inspired by a webcomic, Control-Alt-Delete. He did a webcomic a little while ago, kind of giving you little vignettes about different pricing models for video games, about loot boxes or gold editions or Kickstarters, and kind of got us thinking, back in the day.
The good old days?
Yes, when we were but young pups, and, you had your gray Nintendo Entertainment System. You'd go to the local, maybe a Zellers or Toys R Us.
Microplay.
Oh, Microplay.
Microplay is
right.
right. Yeah.
And then you'd go and you'd look in that display case, and you would find one game that you didn't have, and you would beg your parents, and you would get them to buy you Double Dragon 2 or whatever. And you'd go home and you would play the hell out of that game. And that was pretty much it. You bought the game. It was, I don't even know what they were selling for back in the day. $45?
I was going to say like $35 to $45. I remember like an expensive one being $50. Like that was, oh geez, I'd have my own money for that one.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember, I bought Chrono Trigger for my Super Nintendo, and that was $100. And I remember I scoured the city for a cheaper deal. Finally got a guy at Microplay who told me, that was cost. Pretty much at that, he's like, you're not going to find it cheaper because that's what it takes to make any sort of money off this cartridge.
I don't remember what game that was.
It was Chrono Trigger.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
It was a JRPG, Final Fantasy style.
$100 was a lot back then for a game.
I know.
Was it worth it?
Absolutely.
All right.
So back in the, but you go and you buy these games. And now you go and you buy a game. Now they're $80. They used to be $60. Now they're up to $80, at least in Canada. And I know in the US, I think the price jump was up to was to $60 or something.
Oh no, you can get them.
Is it $80 now?
$60, $70, $80 in the
Okay.
States too. Absolutely,
All right.
They go harder than that. There's like 100, 120. You're right. You get the like super deluxe versions
Well,
that might
we have
have
that as well, right?
That's what I'm saying here too. You might have a figure in a special case and
exactly.
Wipe your ass for you. I don't know.
Your premium editions. You've got your so that's your collector's edition. You've got your gold editions that have season pass built in. You've got you've got free to play. You've got Kickstarter or Indiegogo or GoFundMe or whatever campaign people are using. Sometimes it's just a website with a PayPal button saying, pay us a bunch of money, and if we happen to build a game, we'll give you a key for a digital copy of it.
What a great idea.
Yeah. So we just thought it would be good to kind of discuss, like how has this not just changed the face of video games? Or do we agree with this? Is this something that we're willing to... And I mean, ultimately, it comes down to, right, are we willing to put our dollars against these products? And
are they worth it? Look, video games are expensive now, right? I'm pretty sure it's a higher grossing industry than movies, correct?
Yes, yeah.
By almost 2 to 1.
It is the greatest grossing entertainment industry in the world.
Yeah, I mean, the average ticket price is $60. That's why. But still, the fact is, there's enough people buying them that it's like a $5 billion industry or something like that. Yeah, ridiculous.
They make more money than movies. Which, when you think about how big movies still are,
right?
Like that's not insubstantial.
I think there was a big paradigm shift, to use a word that nobody likes. A big paradigm shift with iOS, for the good or bad. That's when it happened. When there was always, not always, I shouldn't say that, by like the N64 levels, by maybe like PS2, probably the first Xbox, right? There was regular games, and there was usually a gold edition, and maybe that did include, as you said, like an online subscription, or maybe 1 or 2 extra maps, some extra DLC. DLC was one thing in itself, which I think is good, but then iOS came out, and now you had 99-cent games, $3 games,
right? The
occasional $5 game, right? And that changed everything, because now you have this device that you could hold with you that was, it's a pretty powerful computer, right? As we know, it's a pretty good gaming system, and it was instant, and you were getting cheap games. Yeah. So it was worth it to play these games for $3, $4. One came out $9.99, like $10 game. What are you, crazy? Like, I'm not spending $10 on a game, even though less than a year ago you might have been happy to spend $30 on a game. Now your average price for a game was $3 or $4, or you waited for the big one to come out on your console, whatever it was, and that was maybe the $6 game. That was it. It started a transition to get rid of those mid-level games.
Yes.
Right. I remember I had one of the main consoles. I was never a huge gamer, but I played. I certainly played when I was younger too, and the change that happened then basically stopped me from gaming. I was now either playing the occasional free game on my iPhone or on my iPad, and then if I saw a game that I liked, I go, I'm going to go buy that, and I'd go to my local whatever EB Games, and $60, $70. I'm not going to spend that on a game. I'm going to play occasionally, or maybe I want to play with my friends, but I can't play split screen console anymore.
Right.
They want me to play over the internet.
It's all online.
I don't want to do that. I want to play split screen console. I want to have a friend over and we want to play all together right now. Well, I got 4 controllers. I want to use them. That's why I bought the extra controllers. But you're not doing that. Or if I want that split screen console, I got to buy that and then buy the DLC afterwards, and it's like $112. Like, I'm not doing it. I basically stopped gaming. It pushed me out of the industry. And
right.
My Xbox, which I'm pretty sure is broken now, sat there for 2 years and hasn't been used since. And I don't miss it.
Right.
Unfortunately, I do game with some people at their houses, but that's it. I won't spend the money anymore because it's so out of whack.
Right.
I find.
Well, and I mean, as you're to kind of the natural question is, if one of the two hosts doesn't play video games, why are you talking about video games?
Well, I do play video games, just not as much as I used to.
And I mean, I am still I consider myself a gamer. I also, I mean, for me, it's more of a time thing. But I have a current generation system. I have a PlayStation 4, and I have a PS Plus subscription, and that's one of the things I love about it. Is I play online occasionally with friends, but for me, a lot of the benefit I see from that is actually there's the discounts, because I get a greater discount when I buy things digitally, and free games every month. And I don't know how many times there's been a game that's come up that I would have liked to have purchased, but I had not, that is free with my PS Plus subscription. And this happens a lot with indie games, but I think, and I think this is just kind of a bit of an aside, but I know Microsoft has been trying to do it with their Xbox Live membership, and I had a 360. I loved my 360. I red ringed that thing twice, but I decided, this generation I went PlayStation 4. I haven't been going Xbox One at all, and I know that they've kind of been more leaning towards older games. But like what would have been a full $60 release, there's some of that on the PlayStation Plus. There's some games that but you're more indie titles, which is great in my opinion, because there are indie games that I hear about or I see that look interesting that I would never play. Broforce is a game, has 4-player couch co-op. I've played at a friend's place. I would never buy that game. It's not that it's a bad game. It's a great game. It's well put together. It's clearly a lot of love and care went into building it. It's a fun game to play with your friends, and it's a fun game to play on your own.
Is something like that available not on a subscription service?
Yes, yeah, you could buy it, but it's one of those games I wouldn't spend $15 on it.
Right.
And so having it available that way is great, because when, say, Josh comes over, or if another friend comes over, if we're at a friend's place, we can play that game, and we can play that multiplayer.
So what would be, sorry, as somebody who is now, I'm going to play devil's advocate for some of this, what would be the benefit of purchasing it versus just getting on the subscription? Because I don't have a subscription, that's the only way to get it?
So the subscription is, it's month to month. So the games rotate in and out. So you never really know what
you're going to get. So it might not be there?
Exactly. Right. So you don't really know.
So there's a permanent aspect, basically?
Exactly. What they used to do, originally PlayStation Plus they kind of had a library, and occasionally a few games to swap in and out. Now they have, every month they have 3 or 4 games for each of their consoles. So the PlayStation 4, PS3, and Vita, they'll have a few games that you can get for free during that month. And then once you purchase them, I put that in quotation marks, once you purchase them for free, as long as you have a PlayStation Plus account, you have access to those games. So even though they rotate out of the free circulation, they're still part of your library. But if you decide to let your subscription lapse, you can lose those games.
Your SOL.
So
it's standard subscription model.
Exactly. But anyways, so this is just to say I do that, and I also enjoy other full price games on occasion. Not as much as I wish I could, but that is life. But
that's actually important. You can enjoy it as much as you want because they're expensive.
Well, they're expensive, and I simply a
Don't have
lot
time.
of it is time is
Right.
right. You know, that's a big thing. But I think you're right. It is expensive, and I think because of the cost, I've got to make sure, or we have to make sure, consumers have to make sure that they're getting value for their money. I work with a friend who he says he wants. I think he said he wanted an hour for every dollar he spent on a game. So if you're going to have a $60 game, you want 60 hours out of it. If you have a $80 game, he expects 80 hours. And I'm not like that. If I have a really solid 8 to 10 hour
Not a
single
bad
player
idea,
experience, I know. And I mean, and I see where he's coming from. I mean, he's a guy who he loves Battlefield. He loves,
Right.
he's played a lot of multiplayer shooter stuff in his time. He's played some of the MOBAs and things like that. So these are games where, for a reasonably not small but a reasonable buy-in, you can get hours and hours of entertainment. I'm not a multiplayer gamer. I don't grinding out on a first-person shooter for hours and hours to try and build my score, joining a clan, showing that's not my style. I prefer single-player games, and for me, a solid an amazing 10 hour campaign is that tells a compelling story, that has good gameplay, it's great cinematics, it's worth it. That's how I see it. But I also
Is there a point when it doesn't come worth it?
absolutely.
So do you have $60 is fine, $70 is fine, $80 now I need more than the 10 hours?
Well, and that's, I mean, I will often wait for games to reduce in cost a bit.
Right.
So I might wait for it to go on sale, or maybe I'll wait for the Game of the Year edition or a gold edition that is now regular price.
Get more bang for your buck?
Exactly,
Right.
something like that. Some way to justify it. Because of the digital stores these days, it's very common that things, you get Black Friday sale, New Year's sale, Christmas sale,
Like anything
holiday
else.
season sale, Halloween sale, right? Everything, all these digital stores.
Any excuse to have a marketing?
Exactly. They're going to put the marketing out and they're going to mark them down. But you get these, sometimes you get really good deals on things like that. And, recently I bought, I'd fallen a little bit behind in the Assassin's Creed franchise, and I really enjoy those games. The ones I've played a lot of the earlier ones, and some of the more recent releases I missed. And they were on sale, deeply discounted on PlayStation Store, and even more discounted for a PlayStation Plus member. So it wasn't hard for me to justify picking up a $20 card at the store, putting that against my account.
So what I'm hearing you saying though so far is that, given the way the video game developers have adjusted the model, years ago, you would see the game you wanted, go out and get it, or save up and that's it. I know I want this game. Once I have enough money to get it, bam, it's mine. I'm all happy.
Exactly.
And now they've either trained you to be a little more savvy, whether it's life has just made you more savvy, but the fact is, I'm probably going to be interested in that game. I'm going to wait because I know if it's a popular game, they're going to come out with version 2 and version 3 and version 4, where the gold box, the Xbox letter, but whatever they're going to come out with, the loot box versions that are going to have either more stuff, basically more bang for my buck.
Yeah.
Or if it's not a popular game and I'm still interested in it, then it'll drop in price. And again, I'll get more bang for my buck. So they've effectively taken away that excitement of getting a new game when you want it and made you wait until value is the leading component in your purchase.
Well, exactly. I think that's
a little sad.
Yeah, I definitely
Annoying.
When I think about, I think about my evolution as a gamer, and particularly as a consumer of this industry over the years. Like you say, it used to be launch day, launch week. The first few weeks you save up your money, or you from your part-time job or whatever, and you decide, I'm going to go out and I'm going to spend more than I would normally spend on one purchase. I'll go out and I'll buy a new game. And I know this game's coming out and I'm going to go, and then you go to Best Buy, or you go to wherever you're buying your games at. I tried to support Zellers until they were gone. But you go because their gaming department wasn't bad. And you go and you get in there and you could buy that game and it'd be great. And then it became, well, you got to buy it soon because otherwise it's not on the shelf. And I remember distinctly, I went to, and I'm going to call them out for this. I went to an EB Games. This was a couple years back, but I don't think their models changed a whole lot. I went to an EB Games one day, and it was launch day. It wasn't launch week. It was launch day. New game launched. I went there at 2 p.m. I walked in. I said, I want to buy a copy of Game X. And the guy looked at me and he said, did you pre-order? And I said, no. And he said, well, all I got are pre-orders. You should have pre-ordered it. And my knee-jerk reaction is, thanks a lot, you're useless, and you should never be telling me what I should have done 6 months ago or 3 months ago to try and get a copy of the game.
Or how about, I want to make a sale, aren't you in that business? Give me the freaking game.
Exactly. So that was very frustrating.
But, sorry, I was just going to say, I knew somebody who worked at EB Games, and sometimes that was controlled by the developer. Right? They didn't give them enough copies to fulfill, ad hoc sales. They just gave them copies for the pre-orders, which is, the video game companies trying to sort of
drive demand.
Right, but that's ridiculous.
Absolutely. Well, and then I look at, and so then I decided, well, you know what, my pre-orders, I'm going to pre-order from Amazon, because there's the Amazon shipping depot that's closest to me, on regular shipping, not Prime or anything else. I could get things usually in about 2 days. And usually when it came to pre-orders, they would ship a little early so I could get it like the day of still and delivered to my house. That was great. Then I did a pre-order with Amazon, and it was not the first. This would have been probably fourth or fifth thing I pre-ordered with them. It was a BioShock Infinite full. It was collector's edition.
I remember.
Yeah, I did not get the statue version, but I got the version with the art book and the extra DLC or whatever. And I pre-ordered it, but they didn't ship it from the local shipping station. They shipped it from across the country. And they shipped it the day that the game released. And it was like a week and a half. And what's the point of pre-ordering a game when you're going to get it a week and a half after it launches? Why would I do that? And
because apparently you can't walk into EB Games and buy it either. No, sorry.
Exactly. Well, and that's valid, right? I mean, the big that shift, like, this is something that, whether it is something where publishers are restricting access or retailers are being more and more reluctant to stockpile supply, whatever that might be, what it's doing to me as a consumer is it's pushing me away from this idea that a launch day or launch week for a big game is a big deal.
Right.
Long before ever digital was in the picture. So now digitally, yeah, I can pre-purchase it. I can have it set to download the night before. I can play it the day of. But I'm never going to do that, because since then, I've been buying my stuff late. I've been getting my stuff $20 off, And I love, there are still franchises out there that I love that, I am a big fan of the Uncharted games.
Right.
But, Uncharted 4 drops. Am I there day one to go pick up my copy? No, I'm waiting for a sale.
Right.
And I think that's a big deal, and it does shape how consumers are going to be reacting. And I think, you talked about how iOS changed things with the free to play and the cheaper games, and I think also iOS has kind of shifted the way that a lot of publishers view consumers, because you go from a model where you kind of care about every sale. A sale is a sale. Your numbers are sales over time. Well, they no longer care about that. Now they will look for whales. This is a term used in the free-to-play market. A whale is someone who takes your free-to-play game and drops $100 in a month on it, right? And those guys who are buying the gems or the whatever the premium currency is, the
coins, whatever the
special coins, whatever it might be.
Donuts, damn you, Simpsons.
But whoever's buying those in big quantities, like, these are the people they care about. They don't care about me.
Well, it's the golden egg in retail. It's residual sales, right? It's just constant coming back and gets the ink cartridge, right? That's what it is. It's the first one's free. It's your drug of choice. Just come back for more and more hits, and it works. I mean, you can't deny the fact, right? You see, if you go onto the iOS store, to the App Store, and look at the top selling grossing games, most of those games are free to buy.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and I mean, and this ties in actually quite nicely with something that recently has been a big deal. Battlefront 2 beta.
I was just about to say, Battlefront's a great example.
Yeah, and so for those not in the know, video game, big Star Wars licensed video game coming out for the holiday season. It's the second in the franchise. A lot of hopes pinned on this. It's going to be a big moneymaker. Beta comes out to kind of the early beta groups, and people find out that you can get loot boxes. And these loot boxes, which are now common in a lot of different games, you can get, but in this instance, you're getting actual gear for your character for multiplayer play. So you're getting not just Sometimes you're getting things like a victory pose. Whoop-de-doo, right? It's a real cosmetic thing. Sometimes you're getting an actual weapon that gives you an advantage in play. So some sort of high-powered sniper rifle that allows you to shoot from across the map or something like that. And these loot boxes, you can buy them. You can pay real money and you buy them. And I'm not talking about a free-to-play game anymore. We're talking about a full $80 prime retail game. It's got a Game of the Year edition. It's got a season's pass to get all the DLC. It's got all that stuff that you would expect. But it also has this mechanic. And you can earn loot boxes. But the time it takes to earn a loot box is dramatically longer than what you would consider to be an average play period. And so I, as a regular consumer, if I chose not to buy loot boxes, would be at a significant disadvantage. And yeah, you want those loot residual sales. You want that DLC sale. You want the loot box sale you want to keep making that, selling your ink cartridges after you sold the printer. That's like you say, Josh, that is exactly what they're aiming for. But, you look at companies like Blizzard, who have Overwatch, which is a multiplayer shooter game. It has a full upfront cost. They have loot boxes, but their loot boxes are primarily cosmetic. The play changes, there are minor changes. I've heard people say things like, this skin changes the reload time for the weapon to, by a fraction of a second. But that affects professional gamers. Right. The people that affects are so much better than me that we're not even in the same. We should never be in the same match.
For those people, though, that purchase is almost an expense to their business in a way, right? Like that's their life.
Yeah, it's not unreasonable for them to invest in that.
Right.
Exactly.
I think the issue here is more the pricing structure for the average gamer.
Right.
Look, I've seen the commercials for Battlefront. I played Battlefront 1, and frankly, it was okay. It was a little underwhelmed, but parts of it were great. Now, I'm a Star Wars fanboy, so I probably would have liked any of it anyways. But I see the commercial for Battlefront 2, and I'm like, geez, maybe it's time to start gaming again because, oh my God, that looks really good. And then part of me says, well, it looks really good, but it's going to be a couple $100 for a new system, which fine. It's going to be $80 for the game, but I'm not going to want the game. I'm going to want all the content. I'm going to want to play in all the worlds and all the maps. There's probably going to be a version that has Battlefront 1 and Battlefront 2, if there isn't already. That includes maps from there and extra characters. And it's a massive investment for a video game. And then especially, again, for me, as I was saying before, can I play all the modes I want to play? Can I play split screen? Can I play local? Can I play online, et cetera, et cetera? I don't know if it's worth it for me. I don't know if I'm going to play it that much to warrant the cost. But then, thinking of what we're saying, part of me sits back and looks at the other side and goes, look, it's a business. These video game companies are business like anything else. Big business. They're allowed to do this. Of course, they're allowed to try to get as much and maximize profits out of their consumers. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just capitalism at its finest. And I respect that to a point. But if that point starts to then have a negative effect, and I guess given the fact that we did open with the fact that they're the largest entertainment industry in the world, it hasn't hit there yet. But if it's starting to push customers away, that's when you have to start looking at it again. That's the way you start getting their attention to stop doing all these extra buying, making them trying to get all your money everywhere, is when they start seeing sales start to dip. That's how you get their attention. That's what they're going to look at. And I think, to me, relating a personal, a similar personal anecdote, it would be comic books. Right. I used to read a lot of comic books. It takes up time too, right? So it was an investment of both time and money. And it's like, it wasn't that much money. What do you spend? If I was reading a couple of titles, anywhere from $30 to $50 a month, let's say. What really started to drive me away was, I'm reading Batman. We're reading some Batman, and there's a story arc that starts, and then the story arc branches off, and they're continuing the same one. But if you want to see a little bit where this one goes, you got to also pick up Nightwing issues 7 to 14, and then you also got to pick up Superman Action Comics, these issues, and then there's going to be a couple in Justice League, then a couple here and a couple there and a couple there, and by the time you're done, you're what should have been, let's say 20 issue arc. You also had to buy, if you wanted the full story and you want to understand what was going on in the whole world, you had to end up buying about 50 different comics. And of course, they're also hoping, hey, you started to read Nightwing. Why not continue reading Nightwing? And Marvel was just as guilty, and all the other guys were just as guilty as anybody else. Yeah. It was enough. It was too much. Look, that's a lot of time. It wasn't even the money anymore. Which, okay, it's another $30 a month, and I don't have time to read 50 issues. I got a stack of comics sitting here that I'm already far behind on, and you just keep pushing me here and pushing me here and pushing me there. Stop it. I just want to read this storyline. I'm interested in this. I don't go to watch a movie and they say, we're going to continue the movie in a minute, but if you want to see this side start, go into theater 2 and watch that movie first, then come back here. I mean, you'd laugh if they did that, but that's what these comic books are doing. And I think that's, in a way, the way the video game guys are sort of pushing you. They're not going to have cross gaming, so to speak, between games, but they're saying, hey, if you want this, here it is. But what you really want me to know is this, and we're going to wait 6 months, and you can get it again with this one, and you end up dropping, when you really wanted to drop $60, by the time you're done, you dropped $150. Yeah. And it's after there comes a point when you go, Uncle, I'm not going to do that anymore. So the game comes out, and as you admitted you're doing, here's the first one. No, I'll wait. Here's the second one. Nope, I'll wait too. I can wait a year. I've trained myself now. You know what? I got a friend who I know he's going to buy them or she's going to buy them. I'll go to her house. I'll play them all there. When I get my version, I'll make sure it's the one I want with all the stuff. Sorry, I'm not going to, you fooled me too many times. Yeah. I'm not going to play that game anymore. I'm not going to fall into the bear trap. And it's you drop from $5 billion to $4.5 billion in sales. It's not the end of the world for them, but it's a substantial difference. And I hope that's what starts happening, because it's getting a little ridiculous. I find.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's it's a phrase I use a lot, and I'm sure you did a lot in our podcast. But the idea of voting with your dollar, that's what it comes down to. And you hear that in video game podcasts. I listen to another one, and they're, it's not infrequent to hear them say, vote with your dollar. You don't like what this game is doing. You don't like the loot box structure. Don't buy it. And then that, going back to what we were talking about before in terms of, wanting an hour of entertainment versus $1, that's great that you can want that you can look for games that are like that. But you're also not owed that, right? You're owed kind of the promise of what's on the box, and that's about it. Sure. But I think one of the differences that video games has versus some other things, although I think it's shared by comics to a certain extent, is this is an industry that is tailor-made for kids.
Parts of it, absolutely.
A huge amount of, and I mean, as much as there are mature games and there are games that are rated for, whatever, it's supposed to be 18 plus.
Yeah, that happens.
There are a lot of parents who let their kids play games that are rated for over them. And that's, I mean, we're not here to critique parenting decisions, but I think that it's important, in comic books, I look at the comic book industry and I think that a lot of it is actually geared to people our age. Guys who fell in love with their characters as kids and are coming back. So when they do these cross-universe events, we're Infinite Crisis of the many multiple universes, Earths, whatever, version 5.0, they're going to reboot everything. You got to go buy 12 comics. A lot of the time, they're doing that because they see that as, well, these are the guys who or girls who have who love Batman and Batman's or Spider-Man. They're that sacred character to them. And so for them, to take a month and buy a whole bunch of extra comics is not going to. They're going to make that investment, and we are going to reap those benefits. Whereas I feel like kind of your day-to-day consumption of, I'm a kid and I like to read stories with pictures, right. Or I'm a kid and I like to, shoot lasers at my buddies. Those are not always people who can make those savvy decisions. And I think that that's a lot of the reason that we've all heard stories of the nightmare of my kid played some sort of free-to-play game on my phone and racked up $9,000 or whatever.
Well, I think also that has to do with the maturity of those two industries, right? There's no doubt that video games and comic books are both more mature in their presentation than they were when I was young. At least I certainly feel that way. There are, if you walk into a comic book store, there are still the flashy-dashy one-offs, bright, colorful comics, even in the superhero genre. But for the most part, they're much more in-depth. They're not always darker, but there's some darker overtones to them. They are reaching a much more mature audience. That's what they're geared towards. And the video games are the same thing. You still see the occasional Rayman-type video game that's fun and can play with all ages, and they're great, and I love those games. Yeah. But the market is mostly a more mature level game, mm-hmm. and therefore more mature level audience that has absolutely a different spending budget and a different approach to all of it. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's how the industry has evolved, and that's where the money is too. That's what we're going after. but they've still got to be aware of, using your example, I don't mind a one-off for something like an Infinite Crisis or something like a huge game like an Overwatch. Like an Overwatch. There's going to be, that's an event.
Mm-hmm.
So you can resolve to the fact that maybe, okay, I'll buy the extra issues, or there will be an extra cost involved. But the average everyday game now has maybe 1 or 2 versions and a crap load of DLC and just a constant attempt to bilk more money out of me. When, look, I just want the basic version. Why did you hold off on releasing? I really like that you're releasing this 3rd level of DLC. Why couldn't that be in the first one? That's something that should have been there.
Yeah, and I mean, it goes back to a certain amount of churn, right? Like, they want to maximize profitability off of the cost of production. So
sure.
You're building a game. You've got, you build your... I'm going to use Star Wars again because it's a great example, and everyone can kind of relate to that franchise as a whole, right? You build your Star Wars game, so you've got your assets. You know what stormtroopers are programmed. You've got them modeled. The behavior of a stormtrooper is there. So if we take those stormtroopers, we can drop them into ship levels, and we can drop them into forest levels as scout troopers, and we can put them as snow troopers on the Hoth levels, and we're good to go. And then, okay, well, now let's make sand troopers and put those on a Tatooine level. And you know what? We can take that, we can package that as DLC, and then we can get a little extra money because it already cost us, whatever it cost them, probably $100,000 to make a stormtrooper work properly. Right. So I get that some of this is to make it work, and I know some of these are things like there's a great PlayStation 4 game, Event Horizon, and they just released DLC recently, and that was a game that overperformed. And so they came out fairly quickly, and they said, look, we're going to make a sequel because it's clear people want it, and we want to keep that drive going. And so, they've launched some DLC now, and it's pretty clear to me that the fact that they're launching DLC, that was because they said, we think we have a great game. We have some great ideas, but there's stuff that either isn't mature enough to go in the game right now, or, let's face it, we just can't pay for that ice level right now.
Right. I should reiterate too that I have nothing wrong with DLC. I think that's great that you can keep a game going and keep your interest going. But when the game is $40 or let's say $60, and the DLC is $37, that's a lot.
Oh yeah.
And if I'm, that's where the problem to me lies. Like using the example, and again, we're not harping on Star Wars. It's just a wide example that lots of people can relate to. The Battlefront game, the first one. By the time I played it, I think it had. There's the main level, and there was DLC. I think there was one for like in the Death Star, and one for one that was coming. Maybe it was one of the planets. I forget. But there was other locations coming that you could play on. And I get that. Yeah, they can't release it all at once because the game would have to be delayed, etc., for a long time, and you want to get it out there, and then you want to keep the fuel coming. Perfectly fine. But the game was $60, and these DLCs were like $35 each.
Yeah.
And it's not a whole new game.
No.
We're talking about, another area to play in.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money for another whole area when, as you said, they're already using some of the resources.
Yeah.
I don't feel that's worth it. And
no,
and I want to play that really badly, but I get the sense you're just ripping me off.
Yeah, and especially, going back, we talked about indie games, right? And
right.
These other games you can get with discounts and on sales and things like that. So you sit there and you go, all right, well, I'm going to pay $80 because I think, it's not Event Horizon, it was Horizon Zero Dawn.
I don't think anybody would have called you out on that.
Yeah,
but sure.
Anyways,
you just called yourself out. We'll let it go.
But anyway,
by all means, people, let them have it in the comments. Go ahead.
But I think, look at Horizon Zero Dawn. And I don't think anybody would look at that game and say it's not a fully acceptable full retail offering. But then you go and you look at a DLC package for that game that is selling for the same price as a full-fledged indie game. A smaller developer, maybe a 1 or 3 person studio, an independent publisher, maybe even self-published. And these people, they're putting things out. Like, some of this stuff that is being funded through Kickstarter successfully that's coming out, some of these are really fantastic games. So then you're looking at it and you're going, oh, well, I could get that DLC, but I've already bought that game, and that was a really big game. And there's this really cool other thing I'd like to play. There's this, smaller game that tells a story that I wouldn't hear in another forum. Like there was an indie game based on Native American, Inuit mythology.
It's very cool.
It's a very cool thing.
And
it's
you're certainly not
incredibly
going to see that
niche.
from
Exactly.
the big developer. Plus, the big developer DLC, if it's a big successful game, will most likely continue to drop in price, and in a year it might be $15.
Exactly.
And the indie game might not be there anymore, or will never drop in price because they can never afford that that decrease in sort of supply and demand pricing.
Exactly. And I think that really the pushback in my mind is they're facing competition, and I think when you see things like loot boxes and premium currencies eating their way into these big game releases now, there's less and less focus on that gold package that used to get you 2 or 3 DLCs coming down the pipe. Now it's more and more like, well, you'll get an extra loot box or something like that, and trying to work that in. I think that's a reaction to the fact that the offering for DLC, people have found that wanting, and they are voting with their dollars. And I think, we'll see as it goes forward how it will affect. But I think at the same time, I'm hopeful, because I feel like I want the rest of the consumers to be making responsible decisions as well, to help guide publishers and developers and retailers into promising areas for the industry. I think it's a great industry that has a lot to offer, but I also kind of worry sometimes that, I work with a youth group, and sometimes you see these kids and they're 14 years old and they know it all inside and out,
right?
But they do not have a maturity to make good decisions with money.
Well, there's lots involved there.
Yeah, there's a whole other that's a whole other podcast in itself.
So then, sort of coming back to summarize and to bring it to a close, asking you as a consistent casual gamer, do you think that the current video game pricing model is now sustainable and here to stay, or does it still have some more shifts in mind where it's inevitably moved to another level to keep it going?
I think it's definitely, there's going to be more evolution to come. We're not anywhere close to settling. I think we will see more ideas of microtransactions built into games.
Into the game, like within the game itself as gameplay?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think
we'll see a lot more of that. And I know people...
Which is the iOS model, right? That sort of kins back to that, yeah?
Absolutely. I think, people talked... I can't remember which game it was, but there was a game that unlocked essentially DLC on the disc.
Right.
So the stuff's there. We're literally just paying to unlock something that's already in the game itself. It's not an add-on, an additional download or anything. I think we're going to see that grow. I think that's going to become accepted by the market at some point, which it's sad to say, but I think it will be. But I think it's going to continue to shift, and we're really going to have to see how it goes. I do think there's a breaking point on the horizon, but we both know in industry, the next profit model is always on the horizon as well.
And I'm sure they already know what it is.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's like the ketchup bottle that stands on its head and it's pressurized. Right. There's somebody's figuring that out. It's sitting in a basement.
Coming down.
Yeah. So
great. Well, we'd love to hear what you guys have to say and continue the conversation online with us. You can reach us anytime at Twitter or Instagram, where our handle is @GetOurAttention. You can reach us anytime online at thegoatshow.ca, where you can comment right on the episodes themselves, or email us at getourattention@thegoatshow.ca. I'm Josh.
I'm Joe, and that's a wrap.